I'm gonna stick it on the outside.
Okay. Are we all done? Are you all done? Will the Senate please come to order? We'll observe a moment of silence in lieu of a devotional today. Thank you. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
By way of announcement, I would send my thoughts and prayers to the family of the Reverend Jesse Jackson, who was a tower in the American civil rights movement. And I would just say two short things that he used to say that I think would serve us all well to say every day, and that is, I am somebody, and keep hope alive. Are there any announcements? Seeing none. We have Senate Bill S-545 being on the calendar for notice and carrying an appropriation under Rule 31 is referred to the Committee on Appropriations. We have JRS 41, a joint resolution relating to weekend adjournment on February 20th of 2026. Listen to the reading of the resolution.
Resolved by the Senate and House of Representatives that when the two houses adjourn on Friday, February 20, 2026, it be to meet again no later than Tuesday, February 24, 2026.
Now you've heard the reading of the resolution, and the question is, shall the resolution be adopted on its part? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Ayes have it, and we have adopted the resolution. Orders of the day. Senator from Chittenden.
If I might, Mr. President, I was hoping to start with third reading of H 790 and then move to the top of the calendar.
Seeing as you asked so nicely, we will do just that.
Thank you.
We have third reading of H 790, an act relating to fiscal year 2026 budget adjustment. Are there any amendments prior to third reading? Senator from Washington, listen to the third reading.
H 790, an act relating to fiscal year 2026 budget adjustments.
Senator from Washington, did you want to speak to the bill?
I do. I was going to wait for the third. I guess this is the right time. So there were some questions on the floor on the presentation. I thought I would provide some answers because I said I'd get back to those senators. So the Senator Essex had a question about the overtime for the state police. I think it was $800,000. Looked at the details in the governor's budget, and it was $108,463 were for Burlington of that 800. And there was a reclassification to troopers plus the overtime was the main reason for those extra costs. The senator from Chittenden Central had a couple questions. One was about this reference to a contract for the computer project of Illinois, and that company is called CPI. That's just the name of the company. Now it's just to switch to a cloud-based information sharing for law enforcement. It's a service that other parts of state government and law enforcement use. So just moved. It was a contract for that company. Had nothing to do with outsourcing to Illinois. The senator from Chittenden Central also had a question about the income verification for children and family. Trying to remember here. the $50,000, I think the question was this related to changes in federal income verification? And the answer is no. They had an income verification system that they worked with the feds. So I guess it's sort of a yes and no. The feds stopped offering this service. And so the states are having to do it on their own and having to contract with third-party services that do this income verification. So that's what that is. So there was a connection to the federal government not doing it anymore, but not because they were doing it any differently. So those are the questions I was going to provide an answer to.
The question is, Senator from Chittenden.
Thank you, Mr. President. There was also a question regarding the Brattleboro Memorial Hospital language that is in the budget on page 35. And Act 55, which was the proposing a cap on outpatient and in-office costs for delivery of drugs. And so what this, in Act 55, critical access hospitals were exempt from the cap, the 120% cap. And so in 2025, Brattleboro Memorial Hospital was accepted into a Center for Medicaid and Medicare Services for alternate payment models. And so their payment now is like being a critical access hospital. So this language then allows for that hospital to be treated as such. And just so you know, there is a de minimis effect on the overall healthcare financing with this change. Thank you, Mr. President.
So the question is, shall the bill pass in concurrence with the proposal of amendment? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Motion carries. Senator from Chittenden Central.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, I would ask that our rules be suspended and that our actions on H790, an act relating to fiscal year 2026 budget adjustments, be messaged to the House forthwith.
The senator from Chittenden Central has moved that the Senate suspend its rules in order to message our action on H790 to the House forthwith. Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Motion carries. We have on the calendar for action S218, introduced on January 7th of 2026. It was referred to the Committee on Natural Resources and Energy, which reports it has considered the bill and recommends that it ought to pass. Affecting the finances of the state, the bill was referred to the Committee on Finance, which reports that the bill ought to pass. Affecting appropriations of the state, the bill was referred to the Committee on Appropriations, which reports that the bill ought to pass. Listen to the second reading of the bill.
S218, an act relating to reducing chloride contamination of state waters.
Recognize the senator from Washington, Senator Watson, for the report of the Committee on Natural Resources and Energy.
Great, thank you, Mr. President. S218, affectionately known as the SALT bill or the chloride bill, has had a peculiar journey to get to this point. So before I get into what this bill does, I first want to speak to the path that this language took. It started its life as S29 in Senate Natural Resources and Energy, but it had relevance to both the Transportation and Judiciary committees. The Transportation Committee at the time did a drive-by and provided valuable feedback, which Senate Natural Resources incorporated. Then the bill went to the Judiciary Committee, and you'll hear from the chair of Judiciary about their input on the bill. That language ended up in a second bill, H319, which didn't end up going anywhere. So now we're back with S218 as a clean draft of that broadly agreed upon language. You'll notice that Senate Natural Resources voted the bill out with no amendments, though we're likely to have one or two small technical adjustments in an amendment for third reading. So before I explain what this bill does, first, what is the problem that this bill aims to address? We heard testimony last year that every body of water, that one, every body of water in Vermont is seeing an increase in salinity. This is especially true in more urban places that have a lot of asphalt. People are starting to see their well water contaminated with salt, and we're starting to see biodiversity loss as a result of increased salt levels. The problem is getting so bad that when we started this process last year, there was just 1 TMDL for salt in the state of Vermont. And now there are 2 more TMDLs that will be put into place this year, and 6 more that are on track to be established in the next 2 years. Just to be clear, you may be familiar with the idea of a TMDL, or total maximum daily load, for phosphorus. It basically identifies that a region has a problem with its runoff for a particular kind of pollutant. And in this case, it's not phosphorus, but chloride that has been found in problematically high concentrations. We all know where it's generally coming from. We salt our roads, parking lots, and sidewalks in the winter. I'm sure you felt the salt crunch under your feet as you came into the State House this morning. But how much salt is sufficient to keep people safe? This is a question that private and municipal road salt applicators have to ask themselves all the time. And in the absence of any real answer to that question, it's easy to adopt the philosophy that if some salt is good, then more salt is better. Commercial salt applicators don't want to be sued by someone who slips and falls on an area that they were responsible for. So there's pressure to oversalt for the sake of safety. So that's where this bill comes in. This bill creates a voluntary, I'd like to highlight and underscore that word, voluntary, program that commercial salt applicators can participate in for a fee. They would learn best management practices for salt application, how much salt is sufficient based on given surface conditions. Then, if they keep good records documenting that they are practicing best management practices, then they would enjoy some amount of liability protection if there were to be a slip and fall type accident on one of the surfaces they were responsible for. And for what it's worth, Vermont did not invent this idea. This kind of program is modeled after a program that exists in New Hampshire called Green Snow Pro. And in New Hampshire, this program was put to the test with a court case against a commercial salt applicator, and the liability protection did indeed hold up in court. To be specific about the kind of liability protection that a commercial salt applicator might enjoy, it's called an affirmative defense. And this is where Senate Natural Resources needed help from the Senate Judiciary Committee. So for an explanation of affirmative defense and why the committee thought that was appropriate, I'm going to yield to the Chair of Judiciary.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Take a brief
Judiciary
recess.
had multiple.
Now we know. So we're good to keep going. Okay, my apologies. Thank you very much. I have learned something, so we will.
Point of order.
What is your point of order?
What
Oh.
just occurred, I'm confused about the call, why we had a recess. Could I get a parliamentary explanation for
Senator-
why the senator from Washington could not yield to the senator from Wyndham?
Because the senator from Washington cannot yield to a senator who is not on the committee.
Why?
It's a good question. I always thought you could.
Yeah, it's it's a report of the Committee of Natural Resources and Energy, and so no one who is not on the committee can take part in that report.
Thank you.
Senator from Washington.
Thank you. And again, my apologies. And we will hear from the Chair of Judiciary at a later point. Okay, so cliffhanger on the affirmative defense. We'll hear about that soon. Okay, I would express my gratitude for the Senate Judiciary Committee for their help in participating in this bill. That's how, that's the plan anyway for commercial salt applicators, but we know that municipalities and the state are also involved in spreading salt. So for municipal road crews, the state offers a training called the Vermont Local Roads Curriculum. And this bill would require that as a part of that curriculum, the AOT should build into its education the best management practices for salt application. So for the state road crews, they already have best management practices that they follow regarding salts. So the committee thought there was no need to develop what would be a duplicative program for the state road crews. Additionally, there is a portion of the bill that asks DEC to create a report on state and municipal storage of salt, sand, and salt-sand mixtures. It might seem obvious that if you're going to have a salt pile, that it would be logical to cover that pile so it doesn't dissolve and wash away in rainwater and in snowmelt. But there are many places where these salt piles are in fact uncovered. And what's worse is that some of these piles are quite near bodies of water. Of course, covering them comes down to money. These can be very large piles, and covering them does have a price tag. This bill is not requiring that these state or municipal salt piles become covered because we don't even know the scope of that problem. So this bill creates a report of covered and uncovered salt piles and how many of those are within 100 yards of a surface water or drinking water source. The report also comes back with an estimate for how much it would cost to cover or move all of the uncovered piles. Now that I've explained the bill in general, I want to highlight some of the details from the bill that may be of interest. In the definition section, section 2, you'll see the definition of apply salt. It starts out with a definition that may sound logical. It means to apply salt or salt alternative to roadways, parking lots, or sidewalks for the purpose of winter maintenance. But then it adds, or for summer dust control. And then in the next sentence refers to the definition that this definition does not apply to transportation infrastructure construction projects. So what is happening there? Something I learned through testimony was that salt is sometimes applied to the ground during construction work along a road because it helps the ground retain moisture. Just like when you eat too many chips, you get thirsty. When the ground gets salted, it hangs on to moisture better, which prevents dust from getting kicked up into the air during construction projects. You'll also see in the definitions a definition of salt alternatives. So beyond the definition that it does not include chloride, what does that mean? Just as an example, I recall the city of Montpelier for a while experimented with beet juice as a de-icing and anti-icing agent. I'm not sure how successful that was, as I don't think they're using it now, but maybe an salt shortage that may be coming back, so who knows. Also in the definition section, you'll see the term commercial salt applicator, master commercial salt applicator. If you're just one person with a truck spreading salt, you may just want to go through the program as a regular commercial salt applicator. However, if you run a business that employs multiple people in applying salt, there's a provision in the bill that allows for a higher level of certification so that you can oversee other people who are engaged in commercial salt application. Later in section 1, which is for the bill, section 1362, you'll see that ANR creates a voluntary chloride contamination reduction program after consulting with AOT and other states that have similar programs. And they establish the best management practices. This includes techniques to ensure safety, but also minimize the amount of salt necessary. They will establish standards for how and when salt alternatives and sand may be appropriate. It creates standards for record keeping, the establishment of the requirements for certification. I also want to highlight F3, which from that same section, which states that the secretary may elect to implement the program with state agency staff through a third-party vendor or some combination. And I think that's really the intention here. There are third-party vendors who can do this work, and I anticipate that that is how this may ultimately be implemented. Section 1363 is the affirmative defense, which, briefly, would be enjoyed by a salt applicator if the claim is just caused by snow or ice, the salt applicator was following the best management practices, and the salt applicator has kept proper records. However, the salt applicator does not get to enjoy the protection of an affirmative defense if the damage is due to gross negligence or reckless disregard. And they have to maintain their records for 3 years. Section 1364 provides certified commercial solids applicators with a rebuttable presumption that they are in compliance with water discharge and stormwater permit requirements unless they are in a TMDL or MS4 permit, as they may have other requirements. Section 1365 is a requirement that A&R do education and outreach about salt application for the general public and advertising that this voluntary program exists. Section 3 of the bill is the report that I've already mentioned about a report on how many uncovered salt piles are owned by the state or municipalities. Section 4 is about including salt education in the Vermont local roads curriculum, as I've mentioned. And similarly, municipal roads crew that go through the program will have the affirmative defense protection. Section 5 is a fee report, which I will let folks from finance comment on. But I'll just say that in other states, this program is substantially funded through fees collected by the participants. Section 6 is a paragraph making it clear that A&R does not need to run the program if we, the legislature, don't give them the money to do it, with the exception of Section 3 about the salt pile report. We still want them to do that, and we've heard testimony that it should not take an excessive amount of time to do that report. The committee heard from quite a variety of folks, which I will be happy to go into if that is of interest. Though I will say I would prefer to do that on third reading if possible, as that seems to not be in my pile. And then the vote in committee was 4-1-0, and we ask for the support of the Senate. Thank you.
For the report of the Committee on Finance, the senator from Addison, Senator Hardy.
Thank you, Mr. President. You'll find on section 5 of the bill, which is the bill as introduced, on the bottom of page 12, there is a fee report. As the chair of Natural Resources mentioned, this program is generally funded through fees from participants who participate voluntarily. And it is both private commercial operators, our local snowplow drivers who plow our roads, a couple of whom are in this chamber, and also municipal snowplow drivers. So this fee report would ask the Secretary of the Agency of Natural Resources to come back to us next year once they've figured out whether they're going to use private contractors or state employees to run the program, and make a recommendation for how much those fees should be. You will probably see a small tweak on third reading that would add that they should report back on both the commercial applicator fees and the municipal fees, because they're two separate programs under the larger umbrella of this snowplow program. So that's it. It's just a fee report. It does not set fees at this time. Thank you, Mr. President.
I recognize the senator from Washington, Senator Watson, for the report of the Committee on Appropriations.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Appropriations Committee did take a look at this, but the Natural Resources Committee had already removed the section on how much the cost of the program would be. There is a fiscal note on this program, and it included $200,000 for to stand up the program, and potentially a couple of positions, one for natural resources, or for Agency of Natural Resources, and one for AOT. But that being already removed will be a part of the Appropriations Committee's discussions of the budget, and that was voted out favorably 6-0-1. Thank you.
So the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Senator from Windham.
Thank you, Mr. President. Second time's a charm, I think. So, regarding the affirmative defense, Senate Judiciary did have a number of hearings on this topic. We heard from the New Hampshire Department of Transportation, which has a similar program. We also heard from our legislative council, and basically the conversation had to do with the topic of the carrot versus the stick. The initial bill had limited liability, which could be considered a rather large carrot. An affirmative defense, we could call that a medium-sized carrot. And what an affirmative defense does, when a plaintiff files a lawsuit, the defendant can make an assertion, usually at pleading, which, if true and proven, constitutes a defense to the plaintiff's claim. It doesn't close out the litigation at the very beginning of the lawsuit, as a limited liability could potentially do. And if the affirmative defense is proven and there's no disagreement or there's no question as to the material facts, the defendant, the plaintiff would not have a right to recover and no claim because the defendant satisfied the conditions or proved the facts necessary for the affirmative defense. And as was described earlier, this would require that the affirmative defense wouldn't apply if the damages were caused solely by snow or ice and any failure or delay in removing or mitigating the hazard is the result of the certified commercial salt applicator's implementation of best practices. And it also wouldn't apply if the defendant was engaged in gross negligence or reckless disregard of the hazard. And in order to assert the defense, the defendant would have to keep a record describing its road, parking lot, and property maintenance practices consistent with the requirements determined by the secretary under the subchapter. We ended up, I believe, doing a straw poll on this, and after all the testimony, we had consensus. I believe it was unanimous consensus as to moving forward with the affirmative defense. I presented it in Senate Natural Resources, and I presume it was well received because it's in the current version of the bill. So, thank you.
Senator from Rutland.
Thank you, Mr. President. Being that I was the one no vote, I'd like an opportunity to explain my no vote, with your permission. So, bottom line up front, I support protecting the waters of Vermont. But regulation must be data-driven, proportionate, and clearly required. I do not believe S18 meets that test. The EPA has not established a chloride TMDL requirement, and recent federal actions have reduced prescriptive clean water mandates. I do not believe Vermont should move ahead of federal requirements and impose new statewide obligations that will increase costs for municipalities, contractors, and property owners, even though it is voluntary for the contractors. We do not have a reliable statewide database on paying much about how much salt we sold, imported, or applied. Without that information, the bill directs ANR and DEC to expand monitoring, rulemaking, and enforcement authority without clear evidence of proportional benefit. Last session, during testimony on S29, we went around, I actually had to correct my testimony because of that, but this has been around for a while. We heard that the highest documented chloride contamination was associated primarily with winter ice de-icing on the northwestern part of Vermont. That suggests this is not a uniform statewide problem. During the same discussion, we heard limited support from private winter maintenance contractors for expanded regulatory oversight. That perspective matters because the legislation directly affects municipalities and the contractors who keep their roads, parking lots, and sidewalks safe in the winter. In addition, recent litigation in New Hampshire involving Green Pro, Snow Pro, and salt application practices highlights the legal and liability implications that can arise when regulatory standards are evolving. So even though they're going to be exempt if this passes, they still have to lawyer up, they still have to go, anybody can sue anybody in the state of Vermont. So as we consider additional regulatory framework, we should be mindful of those downstream consequences. Protecting water quality is important, but if we're going to regulate, we should do so carefully, based on clear data, clearly defined scope, and a full understanding of practical and legal impacts. For those reasons, I voted no. Thank you, Mr. President.
Are you ready for the question? Senator from Washington.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to clarify that this is a voluntary program, and as people are, as they go through the program and learn about how much salt is necessary, theoretically, this should help them reduce the amount of salt needed and thereby their costs. Thank you.
Are you ready for the question? Senator from Addison.
Yes, may I interrogate the presenter of the bill?
The presenter is interrogated.
Mr. President, how many participants are involved in New Hampshire? Did they get a number for that?
Thank you, Mr. President. That is a great question, and I don't recall, but I can find out for you for third reading.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator from Wyndham.
Thank you, Mr. President. May I interrogate the reporter of the bill?
The reporter is interrogated.
Mr. President, can you, I heard that there were multiple TMDLs proposed now, and that there will be more in the future, and that all water bodies are now impacted by salt. Did I hear that correctly?
Thank you, Mr. President. We had testimony that showed basically all bodies of water in the state of Vermont increasing in salinity, which is not to say that they are all at problematic levels yet, but we could see that there was measurable increases.
Thank you. And I have a follow-up question. Well, first a comment. I find that very concerning. Vermont fresh water is a huge resource. Many of our residents have wells. Cleaning up pollution is much more expensive than stopping it in the first place. I very much appreciate the work on this bill, and I'm supportive of the bill. My final question is, do we have time for a voluntary program?
Thank you, Mr. President. That is a very good question, and I think in response to that, I would say that we need to go at the speed of trust and at a pace that is reasonable for the people in Vermont. And I think taking this step towards a voluntary program is a reasonable first step. There has not been a program like this in the state of Vermont, and I think until this bill, it was perhaps not on people's radars that salt was a problem. And so I think there's still education that needs to happen, and it's starting to become increasingly an issue that is in the consciousness of Vermonters that this is problematic. So I think this is a healthy first step. But your question / point, or the senator's question / point is well taken. Thank you.
I thank the senator from Washington.
Senator from Essex.
Thank you, Mr. President. Can I interrogate the reporter of the bill, please?
The reporter is interrogated.
Mr. President, just a short statement. When you have a bill like this, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you certainly don't. I mean, and that's really where it is. Because if you don't sign up for this program and there's a lawsuit and this and that, and oh boy, you should have done it, or you didn't. This, to me, seems like we're really have a chance to do something about salt content. And was there ever any consideration to slow this bill down to where we could actually get real data to support a lot of the findings that we're trying to make here?
Thank you, Mr. President. We did see quite a bit of data. What data is the senator interested in?
I'm just really, Mr. President, really interested in, what type of reductions are we looking to see? Where's the levels of the salt? I mean, yeah, we have heard through the testimony that the waters are getting more salty, but we don't have any indications about where it comes from, how it is. Is it natural? Is it anything like that? This is just I know it's voluntary, but again, when you do these programs and you make it voluntary or not, you're guilty if you don't do the program. I mean, if it comes to a lawsuit in most cases. So I was just wondering if there was ever any really consideration about just coming with clear data to show over the years the salt levels the salinity of the waters have increased to this point or that point. I didn't hear any of that during the testimony.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would be glad to provide the senator with graphs and data that we saw during testimony, and there was some great data that we got from, actually, New York has a different program, so happy to share that data. So happy to get that for third reading, and would just also remind the senator that in the absence of this program, it's the status quo. Or if this program does move forward, if someone chooses to not participate, it is the status quo. Thank you.
I thank the senator, and thank you, Mr. President.
Senator from Madison.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I failed to mention the vote in Senate Finance. It was 7-0-0 on the bill going out of that committee. I also just want to say we did hear an enormous amount of evidence and data in our testimony. And as the senator from Washington said, we can provide the entire body with that data. Quite really striking data that showed that the level of salt in many of the waters of the state is increasing and has been for a number of years, especially in areas where there's heavy salt usage, where there are roads that are close to rivers that are being worked on. Colchester is a good example of an area that has had in South Burlington, but there are also other parts of the state where salt levels have increased. And I want to make sure that everybody understands that as salt increases in our waters, it impacts obviously all of the things living in our water, fish, the green stuff, the flora and fauna in our water. It also impacts our drinking water. So this is starting to be an issue in some communities where the salt is leaching into our drinking water, and that is dangerous for human beings. So making sure that we put an end, or as much as possible, or slow the increase in salt in our water before it really contaminates our drinking water is really crucially important. We did hear from a lot of snow plow drivers who supported this program or were interested in potentially participating in this program. One of the largest snowplow contractors in my district testified in the House to support the program. And I also want to remind senators that during these recent snowstorms, many of our municipalities ran out of salt. They just didn't have enough salt to salt our roads anyway. So part of what this program would do is help municipalities learn and private contractors learn how to use less salt in an era when salt is in short supply. It is also hugely expensive for budgets in small towns. The salt is often one of the largest budget items for that small town. So anything we can do to reduce salt protects our drinking water, saves money for our towns and our private contractors, and protects the waters of the state. So this voluntary program is a great first step. Many other states are doing it. We heard also from Wisconsin. I think Minnesota is looking at it. So any of the states where it snows a lot are really interested in this. And I urge the body to support this bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator from Rutland.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, may I interrogate the reporter of the bill, the chair of the Natural Resources Committee?
The reporter is interrogated.
If it would help the conversation, Mr. President, I think if when the chair of the Natural Resources Committee brings her data, if it might be appropriate to provide the body a trend line of salt contamination in a variety of lakes throughout the state, wells throughout the state, with a trend line that might go back 20 or 30 years to see where the problem is, when it developed. That would be compelling. So if Mr. President, the reporter of the bill could provide that on third reading, I would be most appreciative.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, happy to bring the data that we saw. I am not recalling how long the x-axis was in terms of time, but I'm happy to provide the data that we have.
Thank you, Mr. President. I thank the reporter of the bill.
Senator from Windsor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would offer up a tree as an example of this increasing salt problem. Yesterday, I met with our arborist in Woodstock because we had a tree that had to be taken down this year. And it's at the bottom of our driveway, and it's town land, but we've maintained it for the town for many years. We had put in these trees when we moved in 35 years ago, and to shade the parking lot. And the tree has subsequently died. And so we spoke to our arborist yesterday, and we were talking about how to replace it. And I said, so Al, I know we got a lot of salt coming down the hill, and I know it sort of pools there, and he said, you could make pickles at the bottom of your driveway, Allison. And I said, then what are our tree options? And he said, you don't have that many. And we walked through a bunch of the tree options. I have seen in real time how salt affects the flora and fauna of our state. And I have to say, as somebody who drives frequently in New York State, their program is terrific and has been really with very modest impact on the drivers in New York State. So I offer up a tree as a living example, and now a dead example, and hopefully a new living example of the salt problem that we have in this state.
Are you ready for the question? Senator from Lamoille.
As it was reported from the Chair of Natural Resources, we did not take this bill specifically into our committee, but we did hear a testimony early in the session on this. This is the third time around with this salt issue since last year, and we did spend a fair amount of time on this. We're assured that in this draft of the bill as it goes through, there is no mandate to towns. And that was important to us, that there be no mandate to towns. In section 3 of this, there is language that talks about figuring out what salt piles are covered and what aren't in an orderly fashion. We do already have that information for everything in the Champlain Valley. Everything that flows into Lake Champlain, they've already done assessment of, so it's about the third of the state that's left that this will focus on, so we will have the whole information about the whole state. The Transportation Committee, if you remember last year when we went through, I think it was the first iteration of this bill, would put forward language to this that talked about monies through grant programs that there are out there to help small towns. I will just give a small town example, the town of Elmore, which had a salt pile within 150 yards of Lake Elmore. It took them almost 12 years to raise the money to cover their salt pile. They're now covered in that. This is about going forward, figuring out where we are. The Transportation Committee will be very interested in this. If there is ever a mandate, it will be imperative, if there ever is a mandate, that the state pony up some money to help these small towns deal with this problem going forward in a timely fashion. So our committee didn't take it, but we are very aware that it's everything. I do want to correct one statement that was made earlier on the floor. We've all heard that some towns have run out of salt this year because we've had a real winter. The Agency of Transportation sent every town in the state the offer. They set aside 25,000 tons of salt to go to communities and offered to sell them salt if they needed it. And as of last week, when I got the last report on it, there were no towns that were takers. But they did have the offer and ability to buy salt, and no town took them up. So the idea that towns might be running out of salt to maintain their roads because we're having a real winter is something that the agency took seriously, made an offer for, and no towns took them up.
Are you ready for the question? Senator from Washington.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to celebrate the interest in data.
Senator from Chittenden Central.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to quickly reference a couple of remarks that had been made. One, my colleague from the Kingdom who asked whether the bill could be slowed down. And I would suggest that this bill has already had a very deliberate path through our body. It has gone and gotten testimony from at least 5 separate committees, major committees, all. And the other piece of this, I think, is that given that this is a voluntary program, there were decisions made, hard decisions along the way, not to mandate that communities or commercial applicators adopt a certain practice. In the Judiciary Committee, we heard from many SALT applicators, and their problems are real. There are problems both in terms of liability, in terms of how much money they can make, their bottom line. All of those things were considered just in my committee. I know in the Natural Resources Committee, they took different data, made different decisions, but it all came together in a very light touch on this industry, given the negative impacts of what we're seeing. So the other piece that I would stress is the Chair of Natural Resources alluded to the fact that we've had several TMDLs established, which means federal oversight for state functions. It means that we're not doing our job and the federal government is going to do it for us. I don't want to live in that world. I would prefer that we dictate our own destiny, and I think this bill does a remarkable job of finessing that line, and I would hope that every senator would vote for it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Are you ready for the question?
Roll call, Mr. President.
It has been requested that when we take the vote, it shall be by roll. Are you ready for the question? The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? The secretary shall call the roll.
Senator Baru.
Yes.
Senator Beck.
Yes.
Senator Benson.
Yes.
Senator Bonner.
Yes.
Senator Brennan.
Yes.
Senator Brock.
Yes.
Senator Chittenden.
Yes.
Senator Clarkson.
Yes.
Senator Collimore.
Yes.
Senator Cummings.
Yes.
Senator Yulee.
Yes.
Senator Hardy.
Yes.
Senator Harrison.
Yes.
Senator Hashim.
Yes.
Senator Heffernan.
Yay.
Senator Ingle.
Yes.
Senator Lyons.
Yes.
Senator Major.
Yes.
Senator Matos.
Yes.
Senator Morley.
Yes.
Senator Norris.
Yes.
Senator Perschlip.
Yes.
Senator Plunkett.
Yes.
Senator Ron Hinsdale.
Yes.
Senator Bohowski.
Yes.
Senator Watson.
Yes.
Senator Weeks.
Yes.
Senator Westman.
Yes.
Senator White.
Yes.
Senator Williams.
No.
Those voting yes, 29. Those voting no, 1. The ayes have it, and you have ordered third reading of S 218. That completes the orders of the day. Are there any announcements? Senator from Chittenden Central.
Thank you, Mr. President. Pending announcements, I would move that the Senate stand in adjournment until 1 p.m. Wednesday, February 18, 2026.
By way of announcement, Ingrid Ehlers, Girl Scout, has one of her sales associates in my office and will be offering Girl Scout cookies again. Are there any further announcements? Senator from Chittenden.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Health and Welfare will meet at 10:30.
Senator from Windham.
Senate Judiciary will meet 5 minutes after the call.
Senator from Washington.
Senate Natural Resources will meet 5 minutes after the call of the gavel. Thank you.
Senator from Lamoille.
Senate Transportation in 5 minutes.
Senator from Windsor.
I have 2 announcements. Senate Economic Development, Housing and General Affairs will meet at 10:30. And we'll then have a joint hearing with Senate Natural Resources at 11, which we're looking forward to. And today I would like to celebrate the birth of our own Senator Martine Gulick. We are so pleased she is a member of this body.
Happy birthday, Senator. Senator from Essex.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Agriculture will meet at 10:30. Thank you.
Senator from Rutland.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Government Operations will meet at 1:15.
Senator from Washington.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Finance will meet at 1:30.
Are there any further announcements? Seeing none, the senator from Chittenden Central has moved that the Senate stand in adjournment until 1 p.m. Wednesday, February 18th of 2026. Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Ayes have it, and we'll stand in adjournment until 1 p.m. Wednesday, February 18th of 2026.